Hello and welcome to the Best and Worst Pictures podcast. I'm your host, Jake, and with me, as always, my good co-host, Ian.
Hey.
That's not Ian. And joining us, as per usual, is my other, equally as good co-host, Mud. How you
Mud.
doing? Still wrong. What is this show, you might ask? Well, every so often, we sit down and watch a Best Picture winner and decide if it's one of the best or worst pictures as compared to the other winners. And this week, we're discussing the 50th Best Picture winner ever, which is, of course, none other than the hit 1977 classic, Annie Hall. And to start us off, Ian has collected... Oh, sorry, Mud has collected some facts.
It's because I interrupted with Star Wars.
I know, and you gaslit me.
All right,
Mud has collected some fun facts about the film, which Ian and I have not heard at the time. So, Mud, take it away.
Thank you, Jake. So, Annie Hall was released on April 20th, 1977. That's right, it came out on 4/20.
Nice.
Let's go.
I didn't know that.
It has a runtime of 93 minutes. We're looking at an 8.0 IMDb score, 97% Rotten Tomato critics, 92% Rotten Tomato audience, 92 Metacritic score, 6.8 Metacritic audience score, and introducing 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd.
Ooh.
I feel
Hell
like
yeah.
we gotta update our
Switch
critical
it up.
reviews.
Switch it up. It's good stuff.
And the logline reads, filled with poignant performances and devastating humor, Annie Hall represents a quantum leap for Woody Allen and remains an American classic.
Okay.
Sorry, let's praise
Hold it
Woody
in.
Allen.
Hold it in, fellas. Hold it in.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's move on to the director. So the director of the film is, of course, Woody Allen. Other films of his include Casino Royale, 1967. So a fun fact about him, he is the father of noted English-Irish journalist Ronan Farrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, biological dad. So anyways... Okay, listen, guys. I read the whole page. And it was a lot of information, okay? If I summarized it, we would be here for an hour. Just understand it involves Ronan Farrow's mother, actress Mia Farrow, several of their adopted kids, one of the lawyers from the O.J. Simpson trial.
Which one?
Alan Dershowitz.
Oh, okay, cool.
Mud, for the audience, what page are you referring to?
Oh, I'm referring to the Wikipedia page about the sexual abuse allegations against Woody Allen.
Not Woody Allen's page.
No,
A page separate.
A separate page. A separate page. Also, fun fact, that mostly happened in New England.
Oh my God.
Connecticut and Maine.
We're not far from those.
Look, there's a Wikipedia page. Just go read it. It's in the thumbnail.
It is, in
Look at your
fact,
screen
in
right
the
now.
thumbnail.
It's in
And
the
audience,
thumbnail.
for context, I made these thumbnails like 1 to 2 years ago. So
You made them all when we first started this
when we
project.
first started a long time ago. So that may be updated now today. So we'll find out.
The first actor up is, of course, Diane Keaton, who plays our titular Annie Hall. Some of her other films include The Godfather, The Godfather Part 2, The Lemon Sisters from the 1990s, and the Book Club series. Fun fact about her, on top of being a prolific actor, Diane Keaton is also an accomplished photographer, writer, and a fashion icon.
Good for her.
Multi-talented. Next up, we have Carol Kane, known for The Princess Bride, The Lemon Sisters, Addams Family Values, as well as several TV shows, including Taxi, Phineas and Ferb, Gotham, The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and F is for Family.
I really like that you snuck Addams Family Values in there. Who is she in Addams Family Values? I love that movie.
Didn't check.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll check.
Yep. Here's a fun fact about her. Over the course of her life, she did vocal training to physically alter her voice because she didn't like the way it sounded.
Okay.
I can relate.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, our third actress is Shelley Duvall, known for The Shining, 1980, Popeye, also 1980, and of course Casper Meets Wendy, 1998.
What a good back to back.
Now, of course, this is a fun fact about her. Famously, Shelley Duvall's role in The Shining was said to have caused her great mental anguish that led to her retirement from acting and later mental deterioration in life. However, she actually did an interview in 2021 with The Hollywood Reporter and dispelled all of those rumors. She even spoke fondly of Kubrick, calling him warm and friendly. She did note, however, that the long days on set for The Shining did take their toll.
Well, yeah.
But she never spoke the way that a lot of people have framed it as, like, Kubrick and Nicholson abused her on set.
Well,
Okay.
it's good that was.
Yeah, it's good
not
that
the
that
case.
was proved to not be true.
Yeah.
Yay.
Now, let's move on. Some other major films that were released this year include Smokey and the Bandit, Eraserhead, Saturday Night Fever, Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
Banger.
A Bridge Too Far, The Spy Who Loved Me, The Hills Have Eyes, Pete's Dragon, New York, New York, Airport 77, The Island of Dr. Moreau, Fun with Dick and Jane, and of course, Star Wars.
Episode 4, New Hope.
At the time known as Star Wars. Now let's get into some production facts. Several prominent actors made their debut in this film with bit parts, including Sigourney Weaver and Jeff Goldblum.
I did know that.
Yep. And of course, the infamous cocaine sneeze scene was actually improvised. It was a genuine sneeze that blew a bunch of dust up into the air. Yep. The role of Annie Hall was written with Keaton in mind. And there was a scene cut from the film that is a fantasy sequence of Keaton and Alan visiting hell.
Oh my God.
Damn.
Yeah.
It was, really early for him.
Now, foreshadowing. I tried to read the production facts about this film, but this was the first thing I read, and it just I couldn't go any further. So Alan wrote the first draft of the screenplay in a 4-day period, sending it to co-writer Marshall Brickman to make alterations. According to Brickman, the draft centered on a man in his 40s, someone whose life consisted, quote, of several strands, end quote. One was a relationship with a young woman.
Is that it?
Huh.
That was as far as I got, and then I just ejected from the production.
Sure.
You were like,
sure.
all right, Woody. Foreshadowing again.
It's enough of that.
Foreshadowing, bro.
Woody Allen, the king of the rule of thirds.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
I read that and I just went, no. I'm done.
You know what, Woody? Respectfully, hey, Wood, I'm okay.
Yeah. Now, moving on to the award show itself. With this film, Woody Allen became the first person to give an Oscar-nominated performance in a film which he won Best Director for. Woody Allen became the first person to receive nominations for acting, directing, and screenwriting, all for the same film, for the first time since Citizen Kane. The last person to get that was Orson Welles.
Damn.
That's
Yep.
crazy.
Talk about Casino Royale 1967.
Yeah, that's actually really funny. I didn't think of that. Bob Hope hosted for the 19th time. His first gig was the 12th show.
So we're at the 50th.
That was 1939.
We're at the 50th one.
That was 1939. That was the year Gone with the Wind one.
So we're at
Oh
the
my God.
50th one, right?
Mhm.
So he does 19 between 12 and 50.
Yep.
That is
Almost
only
half.
30. That is half. Exactly half.
Nice. So, with 11 nominations and 0 wins, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves right now.
Oh, let's
but
go.
11 nominations and 0 wins. The Turning Point set the record for biggest shutout in Oscar history.
Oh,
It has
wow.
only ever been tied by 1986's The Color Purple. I find it interesting that the highest sweep and the highest shutout are both 11.
Very true.
I mean, it makes sense. There's only
That is like
there's
the
only a
upper limit
certain
of like what you
amount
can
of-
get
yeah, I was
without
about to say.
doubling up.
The highest sweep was tied with Ben-Hur, Titanic, and Return of the King.
No. But highest clean sweep is Return of the King because it went 11 for 11.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely
I'm not
right
just
about
talking highest because Ben-Hur
One,
had
yeah.
like 13. I
that. That's a
think.
good point.
Yeah.
So Return of the King only has that. Highest
no,
shutout was
I-
Color Purple. Was there another one?
Literally what I was just talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Jake. It was the Turning Point this year.
That's what it was.
11 noms, 0 wins, tied with The Color Purple.
Mhm.
It's
then
interesting that 11 seems to be the upper limit, but
Yeah.
after that, you kind of have to start doubling up on
Yeah.
categories.
The
Yeah.
Irishman was a 10.
10
Yeah.
none. 10
Irishman
nil.
was pretty damn close.
Yep.
But yeah, it's really hard to. First of all, it's hard to win 11 Oscars.
It's hard to
Second,
lose
It's
10.
hard to win even more than that because
Yeah.
there's so many movies out every year.
Well, also there's only a select number of categories that your film can be in there
Unqualified,
for.
yeah.
Yes,
You
that's
can't
true.
be best fucking live action short, best animated short, and best it doesn't
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
it doesn't
like
work.
Everything Everywhere swept the acting except lead actor because there wasn't a lead actor.
It also technically didn't sweep because it had 2 supporting actresses nominations.
Exactly, so it
Yeah.
physically couldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
very interesting.
So it was hard set that it could never get a clean sweep.
Exactly.
Anyways, so with 11 nominations, The Turning Point entered the night in a 3-way tie for most nominations.
Yep.
Up against Julia and Star Wars.
Mhm.
Walking out of the night with 6 wins, Star Wars.
Yep.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay.
Jack Nicholson presented Best Picture.
Fun,
Sylvester Stallone presented Best Actor.
nice.
This is a bit of a tangent because no one that is related to this production was involved, but I needed to give a shout out. John Molo took home Best Costume Design for Star Wars, beating Edith Head for her work on Airport 77.
You can't not shout out the Queen, Edith Head.
I did. I had to say it.
Yeah, exactly.
This one, I'm going to put another asterisk on fun just because it's very relevant to what's going on. Vanessa Redgrave's Best Supporting Actress nomination was met with controversy due to her recent involvement with The Palestinian, a documentary chronicling the activities of the Palestinian Liberation Organization.
The more things change.
The film, it gets better. The film garnered controversy from several Jewish groups for its anti-Israel commentary.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, because white men love to weigh in on shit, later during the ceremony, screenwriter Paddy Chayefsky prefaced his presentation for Screenplay Awards by saying, "I would like to suggest to Miss Redgraves that her winning an Academy Award is not a pivotal moment in history, and does not require a proclamation, and a simple thank you would have sufficed."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's fucked up.
Fuck off.
Imagine winning one, like, arguably the most prestigious award in film, and someone goes, someone looks at you and goes, "Should have just said thank you, bitch."
Yep.
Come on.
Side tangent. Vanessa Redgrave was nominated for and won for her role in Julia. She was Julia, but she got supporting actress.
Yeah.
Now I want to watch this film. I'm like, is it like an All About Eve type situation? Like, why is she support?
That's weird.
Makes strange sense.
So, moving on. Awards nominated. Woody Allen was nominated for Best Actor, but lost to Richard Dreyfuss, no relation to Julie Louis-Dreyfus, for his role in The Goodbye Girl. John Travolta was also nominated for his role in Saturday Night Fever, and I didn't care about who the other two people were.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm gonna be so for real with you right now.
Yo, fuck those guys.
Fuck them.
No,
I
respectfully.
didn't recognize their names at a glance, so fuck them.
Respectfully, we like you guys, whoever you are.
Awards won. Woody Allen and Marshall Brookman took home Best Screenplay written directly for the screen based on factual material or on story material not previously published or produced.
That is the best title for anything.
Bullshit.
I wish they never changed it, actually. I would love a mouthful of just marbles every time I wanted to talk about a category.
God.
He beat George Lucas for Star Wars and 3 other people that I don't care about.
Mhm.
Now, to be fair, that probably shouldn't have happened.
Yep. Diane Keaton took home Best Actress, beating Jane Fonda for Julia. Her character's name is Lillian. Movie's not called Lillian.
Yep.
And Shirley MacLaine for The Turning Point.
Oh, Shirley MacLaine.
Woody Allen took home Best Director, beating Spielberg for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Lucas for Star Wars, Fred Zinnerman for Julia, and Herbert Ross for The Goodbye Girl.
I'm not going to lie. Close Encounters is so good.
And it also took home Best Picture, beating Star Wars, Julia, The Turning Point, and The Goodbye Girl. And finally, fellas, our Mary Pickford fact.
Woo!
Now, despite Pickford's famous but untraceable quote, adding sound to movies would be like putting lipstick on the Venus de Milo.
I love that quote so much.
Mary Pickford apparently took to the new medium in stride for her 1929 film Coquette, which, if you will remember, earned her only nomination and win for Best Actress at the awards.
Yep.
She even took vocal training classes to get herself a more natural-sounding Southern accent for the role.
Okay.
Famously, apparently, the first time she heard her voice played back on a sound test, she was reported to have exclaimed, "Why, that sounds like a little pipsqueak voice."
That's
Good to know that 100 years later, people still hate the sound of their own voice recorded.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And with that, fellas, we are ready for Pedophile Movie.
I have a
Oh, we
question
are.
for you guys before we start Pedophile Movie. What's your favorite film from 1977?
Oh,
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
All right. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is really close.
Never seen
right?
it.
I saw it when I was a kid. I barely remember it.
I have never seen it.
I'd like to throw The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh in the ring.
I saw that. I was going to put it on the list, and then I didn't.
I believe it was direct to video because it's an amalgamation of the certain ones.
It is, but,
But
you know, it's
when
still
I
good.
was a kid, man, I fucking loved The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. But I'm also going to have to lean Star Wars over Close Encounters, but it's pretty close.
Let me ask you this then, Ian. How excited are you for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey?
The second one, I've actually heard it's good.
What?
What?
Yeah. I've only seen positive things.
That's
which is
shocking.
fucking wild.
I refuse. I refuse. I
look,
refuse.
Debuted with 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I refuse.
We'll get there.
I
in,
refuse.
We'll get there in less than 50 episodes.
Blood and Honey
We have to talk about it.
2.
So, more importantly, well, actually, not more important. Vaguely important.
52% Rotten Tomatoes. Shut your ass.
Okay, it debuted with 100.
Vaguely important. So obviously, Marty is the shortest Best Picture winner. If we only include now and upcoming, Annie Hall is the shortest.
Yep. 2 minutes longer than Marty.
2 minutes longer than Marty.
The next
and
one's the longest.
The next shortest one would be Driving Miss Daisy in 1989. From there, it becomes kind of super long. On topic The worst pictures. The shortest one is Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas, which is an hour and 20 minutes, not a film.
Barely a film. Yep.
The next shortest one is Winnie the Pooh Blended Honey.
Hour 30, right?
Hour 24.
Yeah.
That's also barely a film.
Barely a film.
I saw that in theaters.
Jesus Christ.
I paid money for that ticket.
Would you leave an hour later? Like, it's so fast.
It dragged.
Oh, I bet
It was
did.
terrible.
How do you make it
Like
hour
my
20
expectations were
film
below the
drag?
4, but Jesus Christ, that film's awful.
Oh, I'm so excited.
It's really funny. 2023's best and worst picture winners were my favorite and least favorite films from the year.
That's understandable. I saw King of Killers, so Pooh Blended Honey did not contend. But yeah, so here we are. We're going to watch
Honey.
Annie Hall from 1977, clearly the superior film to Star Wars, I guess.
and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Nominated for 5, won 4.
We'll see you guys
That's
in
up against
just a
crazy.
moment,
3
having
films.
seen.
Star Wars won more.
It won more than Annie Hall was nominated for.
It
Fucking
did.
insane.
It did.
3 films this year were nominated for 11.
But I guess it wasn't the best
Like,
picture.
Apparently, imagine if
Yeah,
Anatomy,
those were just
it's
picture.
Like, imagine if American Fiction actually did win Best Picture. You'd be like, what the fuck?
Seriously, shutout except the big one? What?
Exactly. Well, it didn't get shut out. It won Best Adapted, but like
It did.
still.
It did, which is a very funny award considering its subject matter. But yeah, we'll catch you guys in just a moment. So we just watched Annie Hall. How are we feeling?
I don't know, actually. I got a lot of thoughts. I haven't collected my final opinion yet, though.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
A lot of
funnily
mixed
enough.
feelings. All right. Well, before we get into it, because we're going to go pretty hard into it, let's just say, we're going to enact what I guess we like to call the Cimarron rule around here, which is right now, we're just going to talk about the movie as its own entity, on its own merits. Maybe we'll bring up some real-life events to back up our points, but generally speaking, we're focusing on the movie itself. And then after all that, we'll discuss how it feels in relation to
Woodworth Allen.
Woodworth Allen.
I think it'll
here.
be easier this time just because Sigourney Weaver was Alvy's date outside of the theater in a wide shot. He barely even see her.
Wow.
Anyways, I think it'll be a lot easier this time. Most of my notes about the thing are just dialogue and scene choices.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
let's
okay.
not talk about that. Let's talk about Annie.
Sure.
Annie herself.
Okay.
I think she is a fantastically realized character.
Mhm.
And I think Diane Keaton slaughtered the performance.
Yeah, she did a really good
There's some great acting, I think, all around.
Electric charisma.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is like the crux of the movie is their relationship on and off, so you have to have them have chemistry, and they do. So
They
yeah,
dated in real life.
they didn't. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yep. I didn't bring that up because we talked about that in The Godfather.
That's all right. That makes
Or
total
part
sense,
2.
actually.
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah.
Recently. She's been a lot of Best Picture winners. She's in 3 of the 7 or 8 we've watched so far.
Yeah, there's a
For the
lot
70s.
to unpack here. I'll just start with the last note I have, which is kind of what I think the theme is, what I took away from it anyway, thematically. There are people that are great for a relationship, but not long-term partners. I myself haven't experienced plenty of those. So, like, that I think is kind of what the movie, at least one of the points it was trying to make.
I think you're not wrong.
I don't think that's like the theme, but that is
That's
I
part,
think that
part of the theme.
I think that wildly undercuts just how shitty Woody Allen's character
Oh, yes.
is.
I haven't even talked about that.
Oh my god. We'll get into that. That's a whole other monument in and of itself.
It is.
I think another thing is that some things just aren't meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know?
Even if
And-
it feels right at the time, you gotta let it grow.
If I can say something that stuck out to me, since you have said a big thesis statement for your
Sure.
notes, this film is a less good version of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Far less good because
Yeah.
there's so much to unpack with Eternal Sunshine. This is
But
like
you
the
get where
concept.
I'm going with that, right? Like the non-linear story of the rise and fall of a couple. When this movie starts, Woody looks dead into the screen and says, "Me and Annie broke up a year ago." We don't see them get together until about 40 minutes into the film.
Yep.
Because it's a non-linear film, which we'll talk more about that decision later. I don't think it was the best
Yep.
because it led to some confusing scenes.
Sure did.
But I really respect the fact that the movie starts with Annie and Alvy already dating.
Yeah.
You know, because like so many romantic movies are like, and this is the moment the couple falls in love. And by the time you get to that scene, you're just like, why?
Yeah.
Negative chemistry, you know? But then when we see the literal negative chemistry they have towards the end, you buy it when Annie's like actually kind of flirting with him, because Alvy is such an annoying fucking character.
He is. Oh my
Yep.
God. I think if we'll go on our main takeaways from the movie, I think the main takeaway for me is like kind of the fruitless hopelessness of the character after everything goes through. It's his entire character. He's obsessed with death and can't enjoy life. And he, very similarly to his relationship, was obsessed with the relationship and sort of focused too much on it ending, which eventually just led to it ending.
Like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So let me just...
He wanted to make her smarter because he didn't feel she was smart. He wanted to do this. He wanted to do this.
He wanted to control her.
Yeah. It's about the character and his
insecurities.
Yeah, basically. He had his problems. You talk about it with the psychiatry appointments. I've been seeing him for 15 years, going on 16 years, and I haven't made any progress. It's the same thing with the relationship where he keeps going through it, trying to make her better, and it's not helping him.
So going off of what you're talking about, a big point of if I respect a lot of this movie or not, I just want to ask you guys, because I'm really not sure myself, is this movie a criticism of his character or not? Do you think the movie is embracing it, or do you think the movie is unaware?
Outside of real life events, because I feel like that's where it draws in too much for me to make a non-biased decision about the film. I can't actually make a non-biased decision.
I'll step in.
Sure.
At the end of the movie, Woody Allen has an off-screen monologue, I guess I'll call it, where he describes what I imagine is the last time he saw Annie. And at the end of it, he tells a sort of non sequitur joke. About, he says something to the effect of, this guy goes to see a psychiatrist and says to him, my brother's insane, he thinks he's a chicken. And the psychiatrist says, why don't you turn him in then? And the brother says, well, I need the eggs. And he goes, that's how I view relationships. They're crazy and they're wild, but at the end of the day, most of us need the eggs. The insanity of that statement aside, the deeper subtext to me in that moment is what he's saying is he doesn't regret his relationship with Annie because he enjoyed it, even if it ended. And that, to me, is telling me that Alvy has not changed and has not recognized the many flaws that he has. He is neurotic. He is controlling.
He's hostile.
He is hostile and judgmental and just so fucking rude. He's a sex pusher. And he likes Annie because Annie is a free spirit, and that is something he can't be. So he's trying to control her free spirit. I think on a meta level, the film very clearly criticizes Alvy and makes it obvious that he is, like, not to say the bad guy, but the bad guy in their relationship. He is the main driving force for it ending.
Yes.
But I think it would have always ended. But I wrote a note. There's a scene where Alvy has like a fourth wall break and he's going to people on the street and he's asking them like about relationships. And I think it was an old woman said something like, it's never something you do. Love fades. And I know that the fourth wall breaks are from his perspective, but it feels like it is, I don't know if it's him absolving himself of guilt or if that's like a genuine take, but it doesn't feel like the movie, it feels like the movie knows it's Alvy's fault, but thinks just knowing that it's Alvy's fault is enough, and he never really gets his due. Like, yeah, at the end of the movie, he briefly gets arrested by the LAPD for being a bitch to a cop, but like, is that comeuppance enough?
I think to further the point of the old lady's comment, to me, I think it's just his own
Psyche.
delusion, because we're getting that from his perspective. So he goes, "Oh, you didn't do anything wrong. Love just fades. It just happens."
Yeah,
I
like
think
he
it's
refuses to acknowledge his own fault in this.
yes, and that happens quite a bit, to be quite honest. Because even at the end of the movie, where he's having his whole spiel, it isn't. There's nothing admittance about it. He makes his play, and it's a idealistic version of what he wanted to happen. If he had learned anything, the end of that play would have been true.
Would have been what happened. And you
And
make a fantastic point.
It would have been, the ending of it would have been some kind of monologue that he wrote about how it was his fault.
Yeah.
You know, it was him, something that he did, and how he needs to be better, or some kind of big self-reflection about the whole thing. Yeah, I wasn't perfect. Yes, she wasn't perfect, but, whatever. And it's instead a self-aggrandizing fantasy of him being the bigger person, and then she reluctantly goes back with him.
Yes.
Which is not what happened.
I like that he did fan fiction about his own life, but changed the ending so that he was correct. I like that a lot for what it says about his character. The reason why I slightly lean on the side of the movie criticizes his character and does not embrace it fully is that scene where he's proposing annoyingly, you want to get married or what, at the fucking at that
Hey, so you're not coming back to New York?
yeah, I flew all the way out here. That scene, he is so grating. I feel like it could only have been written by somebody that was criticizing his character. There's no way you could play that and say oh, he's clearly the good guy because she did nothing wrong.
No, it's
Counterpoint, he wrote the film.
It is
That's what I mean.
That is Jake's point.
That is my point.
It is clearly a low point in his life. It's just that after that, I think more what Ian is saying about the lack of a conscious clearing monologue shows that he didn't change that much as a result of it. The movie definitely makes it clear that this is a very low point for Alvy, and Annie is flourishing without him.
Yep.
But it seems more like the end statement is just some things just don't work out.
Yep.
But it's
more than that.
It's more than that, and it really kind of short sells the effort that a relationship, especially a long-term relationship, does take.
Oh yeah.
And I think the film, I'm 50-50. I'm genuinely 50-50 on whether or not this is a takedown of Alvy or not. I think at the end of it, the film pulls its final punch.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I think that's the best way to put it.
Because the film frames itself you're obviously not supposed to like this character.
No,
but
Alvy's a
at
prick.
the end, like you said, he doesn't really get what's coming to him. But he also, you don't have to get what's coming to you.
You need to learn
if
something.
you take something to heart, learn something, and offer it as a vessel of change.
He has that scene before the end where he's with some other girl, and they're kind of repeating the lobster scene from earlier. And he makes a joke about how he hasn't been the same since he quit smoking, and that was 16 years ago.
Which is, yeah.
She just looks at him like, what the fuck are you talking about? And that's the closest he gets to being oh,
Yeah.
I get it. But that doesn't really happen. He just looks at her what do you mean? What
do you mean you don't understand my brilliant humor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a very self-aggrandizing character.
Yeah.
He fucking thinks that because he makes all these fucking references that he's some genius. But he's also very critical of literally everyone around him, including Annie, while they're dating and before they're dating.
Yeah.
This movie is full of scenes of Woody Allen sharing life philosophies to the audience and about relationships.
Oh, I don't want to get to the negatives yet.
Well,
I hate those scenes.
First of all, we could argue we've been there. Second, I just want to point out, whether or not that's interesting or you agree with them, that does not make for an interesting story on screen.
No, oh my God.
It doesn't make for that's not what a movie should do.
A lot
Like that
of
whole that one scene where he's like talking about the professor, that guy in line who's just talking to his date, and Woody Allen's like ready to fucking swing on this guy.
Yep.
Because he's talking to his date, and he's screaming at my ears, like he's literally just talking to the woman next to you, and you
but
happen to
it's
be
from
in front
his
of him.
perspective. That's why it seems like it's so much
I
louder.
think that's the other thing.
Yeah.
It's like the movie's from his perspective. The movie is very much from Alvy's perspective.
Yes.
That is so like ingrained in this film.
Very apparent.
I think that's another reason why it doesn't feel like he gets what's coming to him. At the end of the movie, there's a quick montage of like scenes of Alvy and Annie together.
Yeah, sure.
And for a brief moment, I thought, oh, these aren't subjective. They're going to be objective. And we're going to see like Annie's making different expressions, you know, and she's like a little more annoyed with him. That's not what happens.
I wish.
But
That would
I
actually
thought
be good.
if that had been what happened, I would have been like, oh, this movie I think that would have been less of a pulled punch if like
Sure.
we see like different expressions. Like what we saw in the movie was Alvy's memory, but like maybe we
Right.
see Annie's a little more annoyed, a little more short-tempered with him. Like we see the deterioration, you know?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. We see plenty of scenes of Annie being like upset with Alvy.
Yeah, I'll talk about one in a little bit.
But
I'll talk about one right now.
I was expecting that from the finale, and it didn't give me that.
I'll talk about one of those scenes right now, actually.
Go for it.
And then I want to make a point about what you guys were just talking about with the stopping the film for bullshit. One of the best scenes in the film is the back-to-back therapy scene.
Yes.
Where she is so clearly frustrated because he's not there to have his perspective.
Yep.
Right?
It's
So she's very
objective view
clearly
of
frustrated. He is very clearly frustrated. He is frustrated because they are having sex 3 times a week. She is frustrated because they're having sex 3 times a week.
Yeah, he goes,
Opposite.
Yeah, we barely have sex. It's like 3 times a week. And she's like, it's constant. It's like 3 times a week. And it's
Yeah.
like, on the surface, yeah, that's funny. But like at the same time, like, again,
Yes, it
he's
makes
the sex pusher.
sense. It makes sense because nothing else they do seems like it like works. So that's the one thing where he's like, oh boy, I can do this. And she's like, oh my God, I don't want to do this with this fucking annoying piece of garbage
Even
anymore.
to build on that,
Yeah.
in the same scene, she says, 6 months ago, I would have done it just to make him happy.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not going to use words like or dislike the movie yet. I'm just going to say I accept this movie as an unreliable narrator telling us how he perceived the relationship. The sections of the movie that are him telling the story with characters clearly acting as though he's telling somebody about those characters are genuinely great. I love that.
That's the frustrating part of this movie is there's like randomly it'll just pop off for 5 minutes.
And it's like,
you're
why
"Wow,
are
that
you
was
known
great?
for they're like, he's got his family like, why are you known for this character trait? Oh, because when I was a kid, I was good at dancing. Like they're explaining like he's telling someone else about them. I really like that. I wish more of the movie did that.
Counteracting the point that we were making earlier of when he would just stop and talk to the camera about some hokey pokey bullshit. And I'm sitting there like, man, don't stop. And then, because the scenes that when it stops and he's explaining something, or we're getting snippets from his family, or how her grandmother views him, which is really fucking interesting. You're like, oh my God, intelligent filmmaking, where it's just a one cut scene where it's just like, floop, and it goes back, and that character's not there.
Yep.
Because that's a different perception. That's how he feels like she is perceiving him.
Yes.
It's awesome.
That's so cool.
And then there's also scenes where he goes, well, you see, my bitch wife, and I'm sorry, my bitch girlfriend, who I won't propose to. And it's like, shut up.
I know. I really wish the movie had committed to that perspective shift. Ian, I'm going to mention a movie that you loved most of the three of us. I'm thinking of Ending
I
Things.
love I'm thinking of ending things.
I forgot the title for a second. But that one, it's all in Jake's mind. Jake protagonist. It's all in Jake's mind. So when
Is it JPB?
When he's criticizing her, he's criticizing himself.
Yes.
There's layers to that.
And it's great.
And
genuinely.
That's what I liked about that movie.
Yes. And that's one of the biggest things where if you are going to do something with an unreliable narrator, you have to make the unreliable narrator have some kind of self-realization, and he never realizes anything.
You need some more objectivity.
That's why I'm thinking ending things is like an 8 out of 10, right?
It's like a 5.
It's rough.
Anyways, but I get what you're going with that, and I think that's one of the issues is like there are snippets of objectivity in here. I think one of the best ones, actually no, the best one, and we both popped off about this, is the flashback to when Annie and Alvy were like starting to get to know each other. They're standing on a rooftop,
Yes.
drinking and talking,
Yep.
and they're having a conversation. And at first, the conversation is framed with a wide shot, so you see both of them. Then it starts to go shot, reverse shot, back to back. But when it does that, there are subtitles on the
Yes.
screen that are not their statements, but their thoughts.
Yes.
And it's great because
It is
both of them,
awesome.
it boils down to the same thing. I am blowing this conversation.
Yep.
Both of them are thinking the same thing. And on the level of like the idea that like relationships are a two-person, like it's a group project,
Sure.
that being one of the themes of this film, fucking nailed the execution on that.
Yeah, it did.
Yep.
Oh my god, like she's thinking like, oh my god, he thinks I'm so stupid. I sound so dumb. Like everything
I
I'm
sound
saying
like
is,
FM radio.
yeah, he literally thinks to himself, I sound like fucking FM radio. I sound so boring and fucking high strung, and he is. But
Yeah.
like it's scenes like that I'm like, okay, there is something of substance here.
Mm-hmm.
But then we turn around and then he's just like, you need to be smarter. And then when she gets smart, he's like, whoa, hold on there.
You need to, I just really like college education. It's adult education. It's good. Adult education's junk the second something doesn't go his way.
The subtitles thing was probably the best scene in the movie.
Yeah.
I have the second best scene in the movie.
I wish that came back more often. Not even just throughout, obviously throughout.
Just in other
but
arguments.
Imagine the end where he's asking to propose. Imagine if that conversation had mental subtitles, where what they were actually thinking or wanting the other person to say about that could have jumped it up by like 100 points out of 10.
I mean, imagine if he goes,
Because then,
are you just going to marry me or what?
Right.
And the subtitle goes, I just don't want to see her with someone else.
right? Or then what if she's like, I hope he says no, or I hope he what if he asks her and then the subtitle is, I hope she says no. There's so many layers.
Yeah.
Imagine, because the first scene would have seen that would be for complete comedic purposes, and then it would have been retooled for actual dramatic purposes.
If I can
Yeah.
pitch what I think might even have been a better scene for that, the scene of their cordial breakup.
Yeah.
Where they're just packing
Oh.
boxes.
That would have been really good.
Imagine that with subtitles.
Incredible.
Because they're just like, yeah, no, we're just going to be friends. Like, can you even imagine other couples being
I
able
never
to break
want to
up
see this
cord?
man again.
Yeah, like, oh my God, I hate him so much.
I
like,
hope we get back together.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's how it felt the whole scene. Because he
Yes.
put the book back in her box.
There's
yeah,
so much there.
He put a book he bought for her in her box, even though she was like, I don't want that.
Yep.
Because he's such a control freak.
Yep.
There's
But
another.
I think that would have been a fantastic scene for the subtitles.
there
really
are a
would've
couple of scenes of the same, like, I almost just said genre of scene, of good scene and
Caliber.
creative.
Caliber, yep.
The scene where they first have sex and she's not high, where her mind detaches from her body.
Yeah.
Second best scene in the film.
That's
Awesome.
That
great.
was great.
scene.
And she's like, oh, well, you have my body. And he's like, well, I want it both. It's like, that's cool. However, she just wants to get a little high. And you're like, that's what I mean about like the control freak thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's
Yep.
like, you can't get high and have sex with me.
It's
not
like if someone
fair."
laughed at my joke when they're high, they're always laughing.
Yep.
Which was a funny line. But
But it's like, dude, like see, that's an example. Sorry, to immediately make it negative. That's an example of Alvy is in a prison of his own design. Like, he's the one who decides to take issue with the fact that Annie likes to smoke before she has sex.
he's the one
And
who
then-
pushes her to go get the education and gets mad at her when she's friendly with somebody.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
he's the one who gets mad when Annie starts to like withdraw from having sex with him
Yep.
because he's making her do things that she doesn't like to do in bed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The best movie about this subject is When Harry Met Sally. I just watched a movie that came out this year called Molly and Max in the Future. It is a sci-fi spiritual successor to Harry Met Sally. And even that movie did this subject more effectively, in my opinion. And there are a lot of reasons why, but for me, the biggest reason why both Harry Met Sally and that are better than Annie Hall is the likability of the characters. And this ties back to what I was saying at the start, which is this movie a criticism of his character or not? Because if you're throwing him on screen in all these fucking scenes, whether or not you're criticizing him, it's better if you are, he's still annoying as fuck. Like, there's this scene where, I forget the guy he was talking to, or sorry, talking at him, where Woody Allen's sitting in the chair, the guy in front of him is doing all kinds of like jokes or whatever and like trying to like whatever, and Woody Allen's monologue is, man, this guy is so annoying, this guy won't shut up, he's just going neurotically off about, like, that's you the whole movie, and that's you after that scene the whole time.
Oh, I got another scene for you exactly like that. Do you remember when he's at the fundraiser or something for
His other wife?
no, the dude, what's his name? Adlai Stevenson III.
Ah, yep.
And he's talking to that stagehand, and he's like, you got a comedian on before me. I can't go after a comedian. They're already laughing at him. They're not gonna laugh at me. And he's
That's
like,
pretty good.
He like my impression.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good, very good.
Thank you. So he's like popping off. He's fucking being a neurotic little bitch. And then at the end of it, the girl just goes, "Oh, well, I think you're attractive." And then they sleep together.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what
No,
the fuck?
I don't think they actually sleep together because I made a note about this. I wanted to bring this up. He's like cheating on his girlfriend, but
Annie
he's
Hall,
not
for the
cheating
record.
on his girlfriend because he goes in there, they kiss once, and then he starts talking about JFK.
He does. And he's like, there was a second shooter. And like, I'm pretty sure she was like crossfaded or something in that scene. 'Cause
Yeah.
she sounded fucking tweaked.
She sounded high. Yeah.
She sounded high as shit.
Yep.
But like, those are the scenes where it's just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why is this? That's a scene where I'm like, why is this happening? How did he bag that girl after like the way he talked to her?
Mm-hmm.
I
Just-
don't.
Men
Someone-
writing women.
So I don't really like. I'm just gonna go back into more negatives, please. I don't like a lot of the time skips. I feel like it makes it a little bit confusing when they don't do certain things and when
there
they
are
do certain things.
genuine scenes-
But there are a couple that are really good, like how it doesn't start at the beginning of the relationship, then we get into it, and then it doesn't.
That
But
I
I
thought
don't
was
know when
clever.
it stays linear, and I don't know when it doesn't. Towards the end, it was all linear, but in the middle, I'm like.
So actually, I have a note about that. I think there's a hint. I think there's an unspoken hint about like the linearness of this film.
Okay.
Annie, in several scenes that I think are meant to be sequential, not sequential, but those scenes take place in a certain period of time, has her hair in a very distinct manner. She has it up with like a fucking like a Zula bun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not in every scene. Like it'll flop back and forth. So I think, I'm not 100% certain, but I think when she has her hair in that style, it takes place in a certain time frame. And when her hair is down, it's another time frame. The problem with that is when we meet her hair is down. And at the end of the movie, her hair is down. So it's like, it's not like her hairstyle is constantly changing. It's like she briefly changed it to that and then changed it back. Or
Or it means
counterpoint to
nothing.
my own point. Yeah, counterpoint to my own point. She might just do her hair like that some days.
Yeah, maybe.
You know,
I don't
so
know if there's
I'm
a clear
not sure
correlation.
because that's the only thing that changes. Like, it's not like Woody Allen's hair gets shorter,
Yep.
or like she fucking like has like a distinct necklace she wears during the time. Like, there are ways to do.
It would have
like-
been really nice if you could see the watch that he bought her in a couple scenes after to
yeah.
yeah.
There are ways.
And who knows?
to
Maybe we
do-
couldn't. I just didn't pay attention.
There are ways to do different time periods without like looking the audience dead in the eye and going, "This is 10 years in the future."
They should have done it in black and white for certain scenes and in color for certain scenes. That would have been really cool.
Oppenheimer style.
Fucking Memento style.
Also true.
Yeah.
Nolan style.
Nolan style.
Yeah.
We'll call it Nolan style.
style.
But like there are other ways to like express to the audience like, hey, this is a different time period.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. The fact that it's nonlinear is great at the start, but it kind of shoots itself in the foot over that towards the middle. Because there are scenes where we were debating, we were like, is this sequential? Like, did that happen before this scene or after it?
All three of us dislike titles that are just a normal name because it tells you nothing about the film at all. This falls in that category.
Yes.
Just want to point that
We
out.
had
But
that
like,
conversation.
I will ask, what, not to say that I'm defending it because I would never defend Michael Clayton titles.
Mhm.
What would you call this film?
I would call this film Annie Hall, actually.
That is a good question.
I kind of have to agree with you, and I think I would just call it Annie Hall.
The main subject of the film is the character and the person of Annie Hall through the lens of our shitty narrator. And otherwise, that bitch I dated? Like, is that what we're really...
Because
like,
the only other thing I can think of is the breakup, and that's equally
that's
generic.
shit.
It's pretty generic. I
That's-
was thinking like something that
I got it.
lines up with
Let him
his worldview of what the relationship was. So like a missed opportunity, even though in reality it wasn't. Something along those
That
lines.
full,
Not the full thing.
missed opportunity parentheses.
No,
even
no
though
parentheses,
reality
no
it wasn't.
brackets. Subtitle hyphen.
When Alfie met Annie.
Dude,
Shut up, Ian.
the Mission Impossible sequels, because Mission Impossible is already a subtitle, so they hyphen the third.
How many
wild.
subtitles? Part 1.
Well, the
Dead
part
Reckoning.
1 is just crammed at the end of Dead Reckoning. So
Yeah.
it's Mission
No,
Impossible hyphen Dead Reckoning part 1.
I straight up think because this is the muse of the entire film that it makes sense. Essentially, the film's named after the quote MacGuffin, and it's Annie Hall.
I I have to agree with Ian. As much as this is not an endorsement of just naming the movie after characters.
And look, our peeve, there's exceptions. John Wick, I get it. It's not like it's a perfect one-to-one situation.
That was not the original name of the movie.
I'm sure. Scorned? Was it?
Scorned.
That's worse.
Yeah, they just.
That's
you
some
know
real-
why they changed it, right?
That's some real The Breakup energy.
You know why they changed it, right?
No.
Because Keanu Reeves just kept telling people I'm making a movie called John Wick, and the marketing team was like, "That is millions in free advertising."
Yep.
So they just changed the title.
Fair. It's better than Scorned.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have one note left.
I have
that
so
I have
many
so
notes.
many notes, dude.
That isn't about it.
I still
No,
have so
I
many.
have somebody else that aren't
Okay.
about it either.
All right.
Can I just say, I'm gonna fire in. This movie's funny.
It
There's
is.
so many scenes in this film. Like, when he's talking, I already mentioned when he's talking about JFK to the girl. He's like trying not to have sex with her because he feels guilty about cheating on Annie, but he already did it, but he also didn't. It's so funny. And then there's so many good jokes. The fucking like little Sylvia Plath joke where it's like Sylvia Plath is just through the lens of like college girls, and when the Norm Rockwell painting, Grammy Hall. What are you? Did you live in a Norm Rockwell painting? That's
Grammy
fucking
Hall.
hilarious.
Yep.
Or it's not masturbation, it's sex with someone I love, is the funniest line in the entire film, without a doubt. It's so funny.
It's great. It's great
There is
stuff.
a lot of just really good little jokes. That being said, there's a bad joke for every good joke in this movie.
There are.
It does trade off quite often.
But the jokes that work are so good.
I would say the jokes that are funny are funnier than the jokes
That are
that are
bad.
bad are
Yes,
bad.
Yeah.
which is good
The
because
peaks are higher than the valleys.
if it's 50-50, that's what you have to do, right? It's for comedy, you're not going to hit every time. And even if you hit half of the time, as long as the ones that make me laugh are better than the ones that make me groan. Like if I'm like, "Ugh,"
To immediately counter with something that's negative, one of the first scenes in the film is Alvy and his friend, who I'm going to call Max because I never actually figured out his real
I think
name,
it's Max.
are just talking about whatever. It's like a character introduction for the two of them.
Sure.
They are walking from way the fuck down the street.
Oh my God, you're right.
But
I have
the
a note.
audio sounds like they are like next to the camera, and it never like gets louder as they get closer. And it is the most confusing ass shot because you're just looking at this blank screen and you're like,
Yep.
who the fuck is talking? It takes, I swear to God, like 35 seconds for them to get close enough for you to be like, oh, those two
Yep.
in the fucking distance. And then a woman walks by in the background who's wearing tan pants and a blue vest with blonde hair. And I'm like, oh, that's Annie. It's not Annie. It's
Nope.
just a woman.
Just a random woman. Yep.
So what's really, really funny, I have one note about that scene, and it goes, why is this scene down the road?
It is like it's
So
such
far.
it's such bad framing. And I will give the movie credit. They introduce Alvy's character right away. He's such a bastard.
He's terrible.
He's so rude to like everyone
Everybody.
and everything.
I know.
You know.
I know.
And I will say, I mean, I think it's good for the nonlinear perspective of you see how it ends and then you see how it starts. And I do, at the end of the day, somehow believe that Annie and Alvy ended up dating. But I also fully believe they broke up.
I mean, think about it too. How many times have you seen somebody dating somebody who you either go, oh, that she's like they're out of their league, or damn, like how are they with this person knowing their personality?
Yep.
I can say for certain, last year, I'll try to keep the personal details to a minimum. Last year, a friend of mine ended a 6 or 7 year long relationship.
Oh wow. Okay.
I did not know him all 7 of those years. I met him year 5 of the relationship, year 6,
Mm-hmm.
pretty close to the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I did not care for his partner in the slightest. I thought they were very rude. I thought they were very petty. And one of my questions was, how the fuck are those two together?
Yep.
Yeah.
And when they finally broke up, I didn't say it to him,
Good.
even though he was the one who initiated the breakup. But I thought to myself, thank God he can do so much better than them. So it is a thing where like
Yeah.
you see the couple at the end, and you are right, Jake. There are some relationships that are just like they are not meant to be a long-term thing.
Yes.
Or a short-term thing.
Well, that's the point of the movie. Like, some are really great now, really great in the short term,
Flash
even
in the pan.
on the time scale of months or even a couple of years. But after that point, when it comes to like, let's settle down together, people are just not compatible. You
Yeah.
know? That could be true. And even to the point where you realize that, then you break up, years later you meet and you think, wow, we're perfect again. Let's do it again. And the same thing happens.
That's why some motherfuckers get divorced twice.
Exactly, from the same people.
No, I can feel that though, because like I kind of feel the same way about my most recent ex. You know, like in hindsight, I'm like, man, we really stopped working like a year before we actually broke up, but like neither of us wanted to say anything, because I think there's also something to be said about like you get into the routine.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be alone.
No,
Do I say the word sunken cost fallacy here?
Yeah, no,
Where-
Ian, I think that's a valid point to bring up is the sunken cost fallacy.
My last relationship 80 years ago, it was done 4 months into the relationship, and there were 5 more months still. I knew the entire time. I had time to mourn that relationship before it was over.
I remember, not my most recent ex, but I dated this girl for about 6 months, including a 1 month break.
Oh,
Not bad.
I was not into her.
sure. Yeah.
I really was not into her from almost the outset. Like a month in, I realized I didn't like her that much. And I remember speaking with my therapist about it. And I was just like, I just blah, 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 like this, that, and the other thing. And she was like, you know, you have never said anything positive about this girl. Like, even at the beginning, you were at best neutral on her. When is the end point? When you marry her? And that was when I was like, oh my God, I need to break up with this girl.
Yep.
That's it.
That is a crushing realization, because not to chime in with the same,
go right ahead.
same exact opinion as both of you, but like, yeah, my last relationship before the one I'm in now, we were together.
Couple years.
Well, we were together for multiple years. At least a year before the breakup, I knew in the back of my head, but the problem was I didn't want to admit it, because I would have had to do that, and I hate hurting people. I hate that so much. But
It's not
obviously,
true, you're a dick to me all the time.
it's true. Yeah.
But I don't love you.
Keep it
Yeah,
alight. Keep it
yeah,
alight.
yeah, exactly. But no, because I knew like this is the best decision for her. For me to hurt her, it is the best decision long run, and for both of us, obviously, to grow and heal. But it was so difficult that it took me so fucking long to do that. On topic with that, though, you're absolutely right. Of course, you're saying, in your therapy session, oh, I wasn't mentioning anything positive about her. If you're bringing her up in therapy, it's probably not because you guys are the happiest people of all time. That's usually why that's the situation.
The only thing that I can counter with that is if you say, I started something new, I'm a little bit,
Yeah,
if
like-
you have reservations about yourself in the situation.
Sure, yeah, there's
Yeah.
exceptions.
No, you
everywhere.
can still talk. Like I talk when I went to therapy. There were people I only ever talked positively about. Like positive influence in your life. But yeah, no, you make a good point. Is like most of the time the positive people only get brought up sparingly, because that's not what you're there to deal with.
That's not what the point of it is. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I actually have stopped going to therapy. Is my therapist was like, you don't really like have the issues that warrant therapy anymore, which is good.
Well-
like you want that, but like at this, but no, it was. I just remember her being like, you have literally never said anything positive about her. I remember finding some text messages I sent a friend of mine who lives in England. And they were dated 3 weeks into our relationship. And I basically said, yeah, I don't think it's going to last, but like, whatever.
And then it went on super
And I
long.
was like, Jesus. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of regret about like how long I led that girl on for. Cause
Sure.
like, oh, dude, she really liked me. And I feel so bad about that.
Yeah,
Cause like,
yeah.
I the more I look back on it in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I genuinely did not like her. I don't even know why I dated her at this point.
And then to tie that in thematically to what I was trying to bring up on that point, which is the what the hell was it? It was the point of what was being said. Fuck,
Sunk cost fallacy.
No.
Compatibility.
Oh, the crushing realization. So when it
Yeah.
comes to that, your therapist said, is it going to be marriage or breakup? Those are the only two real routes in life.
Those are the only ends.
And so when you're in a relationship that's like, maybe it's stagnant, maybe you're not sure what's going to happen, if you should keep going, you got to ask yourself, like, there are two options here. You can't date someone until you're 80 years old and die. You're not Al Pacino, right? There's two options here, marriage or you break up.
Even then, even if it's not marriage, being with someone you don't like in the long term.
Mhm.
You know, like there are relationships that effectively become marriage.
Right. The personal aspect here, like when I was with that person, throughout that relationship, I kept trying to be like, could I end up marrying this person? And like the answer always came up, probably not. Towards the end, it became no. So at that point, I was like, shit, I have to make a very tough decision. But after that, I was like, wow, maybe that's just not the path for me. And now that I'm in this current relationship, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm good. I can see this going. This is awesome. But yeah, so it's a lot of it just depends who you're with. It depends a lot about. This is not to do with the movie, is it?
No,
How
but
long
it
did we
is, but it isn't.
It has to do with the relationship aspects and theme of the movie.
And
Right.
it's good to draw on personal
Yeah.
experience for a
'cause
film like
the
this.
movie is clearly trying to relate to the audience with these issues that
Yeah.
pretty much everybody goes through. in
I
terms
can
of-
I can relate to Alvy on a spiritual level. I'm also
Ian is Alvy.
I'm also a copium level bitch who idealizes my perfect scenario with
You
people.
I
ha-
mean,
you
dude-
have 30s level neurosis at 27.
I do!
28.
He does.
It's terrifying.
Also, you can't be like 30s. Well, he's 28. He's
He is
dying.
20. Yeah, he's close.
I'm not.
to-
I'm not
he's
20.
almost-
I'm not even 28 yet.
He's in the coffin,
I
basically.
know, buddy.
He's
I
done.
know.
But yeah.
No, like I understand, especially with the like obsessed with death so much that you can't enjoy life, where you're thinking too much about the future.
Yeah.
Like
But this,
there's a lot of really good themes here.
you know what I'm going to tie this all back into?
Mm.
Jake, your discussion about you realizing you couldn't be with that person, my discussion of realizing I kind of fucking hated that girl. And Ian, even your thing about existential neurosis in your 20s.
Like
We all learned something.
We did,
And
yes.
we all grew as people.
I was gonna make that
Alvy
point, yeah.
didn't fucking grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's bothering us is like we can relate on a certain level to the idea of like being in a relationship where you're trying to make it work and trying to make it work and trying to make it work and it doesn't work out. And that's fine. You know, like you need to eventually move on. Like it took me a while to accept that my most recent ex and I broke up after so many years.
Yeah.
But eventually I realized, no, it's for the best. We wouldn't have worked. There were so many things we were so far apart on. And I'm sure you're the same way with your most
you just
recent
realize
ex.
you're not compatible.
And we learned something. We're not out here writing copium levels of like play self-inserts. Alvy doesn't learn anything.
He
Like
doesn't.
I think that's what's frustrating us is like on a level we can relate to Alvy, not as people. We're not that shitty.
Mm-hmm.
We're not that shitty, audience. But like we can relate to like the idea of like struggling to put the square peg in the round hole.
Yep.
Yeah.
But all of us
Goes in the
eventually
square
stopped trying to put the square peg in the round
Yes.
hole.
Yes.
And it doesn't feel like Alvy really does. It feels like he just kind of finesses it into the square hole and just pretends he put it in the round hole. Like,
Yep.
it worked.
Yep. Why didn't this work out for me?
That's right. That goes in the square hole.
And the
Yeah.
levels
Over
of
and
blatant entitlement, like when he's talking to her at the end, like, will you marry me or what or whatever.
So why aren't you coming back to New York with me?
He brings up, like, I flew all the way here.
Air
to
miles.
do
Do
this.
you know what
Air
that does to my stomach?
Yeah,
Like,
it
shut
was
the
very
fuck
difficult
up, bro.
for me to come
everything
here.
was always about him.
Everything was always about him. And
Even-
granted, I accept this movie as a movie that is literally always about his perspective. I understand that concept, and I actually do respect it. It would be a worse movie if it weren't. But I wish that followed all the way through. You know what I mean?
Again, when I talked about like, what about a sequence at the end where we see the objective look at the relationship and we see Annie was never really that happy to begin with?
That would be incredible.
What if we looked into his apartment before he went over there and it's just a fucking disaster?
That'd be nice.
He's always so neat and tidy from his memory.
Yeah.
But
Like-
yeah.
What if he's actually a coke user?
What?
No, but like imagine if we get that perspective and we get him, tidy, proper, smart, everything, take care of yourself, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes, well, I'm coming over. He stands up. We get a shot of his apartment. It's disheveled. He hasn't been taking care of it or himself.
Exactly.
you
That
know?
would be like another level up. That'd be really great.
But no, instead we get a movie, and I'm just going to bring up the thing about a pedophile with a lot of really
We'll get there.
weird.
We're so close.
Well,
I think we're here, man.
I'm here. This is a film directed by a pedophile,
Yes.
written by a pedophile,
Starring a pedophile.
starring a pedophile, where he says certain things such as 16-year-old twins and a notch under child molester, and I was just using my sexual urges as a 6-year-old,
Yeah.
and then he turns into adult in the daycare or whatever.
Let's elaborate on that. So one of
I-
the first scenes is a flashback to his childhood, and he's explaining that he's always loved girls. from a
Weird.
young age. And then like 6 or 7 year old Woody Allen or Alvy Singer gets up and kisses his classmate. And then his classmate starts freaking out, and his teacher calls him to the front, like, what the fuck was that? And he just starts going, what'd I do? What did I do?
He's an adult.
And
in that
then,
part.
no, the kid gets called to the front, and then it cuts back to Alvy's desk, and adult Alvy, Woody Allen, is sitting there, and he's just like trying to justify the fact that he's just like always like touching people. The twins thing was after his buddy gets him out of jail. Max gets him out of jail.
His name's Rob, by the way.
Cool. After Max gets him out of jail, he's like, I heard some
high-pitched squealing.
High-pitched squealing on the other side of the line. What was that? And the guy just goes, twins, Alvy, 16 years old. Can you imagine? Like, it's like, whoa, bro.
Whoa.
And what the fuck was that?
We're getting the thoughts, like the abject thoughts of a serious relationship through the eyes and ears of a pedophile. And I'm just like, I really wish something bad happened to him because fuck.
I don't necessarily wish something bad happened to
No,
Alvy because Woody Allen's a freak
no,
20
but
years
like
in the future.
it makes it feel like
He also
he's
touches
never-
a lot of shoulders.
he's never done anything wrong in this film. He never
Yeah.
does anything wrong.
He never does anything
You know?
bad enough to like actually warrant consequences.
Yes.
And like I just said, he also touches a lot of shoulders.
Yeah.
And he's doing
there's
like
a
the
lot of-
Joe Biden death grip.
Yep.
And then yeah, you're right. He made a statement. I don't remember the exact context, but he basically said those guys are just like one rung below child molesters, and it's like you are what?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are too many layers to count here. This is like
Yep.
an ogre on top of an onion.
Yeah, it's like I didn't, we were like, oh, well, we'll bring that up later. And in the moment when we started the movie, because we talked about whether or not we were going to bring it up, I was like, I don't know if it's gonna come up. Like with Cimarron, there's a lot of racial overtones in that film, and like it had a lot to say about like race relationships, specifically between black people and white people. But then the fucking Native Americans are right there, and it's like you're so close and you're so far.
You're so far.
But like with this one, I'm like, yeah, he's a pedophile like 20 years in the future. But I was not expecting spoilers for a future episode. American Beauty levels of like, oh my God, this is just about what he is.
I mean this in the worst way. Woody Allen's opening speech eerily reflects his real life. Because you were talking about, at the start of the film.
He's
yeah,
like an
I
incel.
thought so
Yeah.
too, Mud. And then it started. And then he started talking to the camera about all of those wonderful little things that Woody Allen is known for
His
in his real
repressed
life.
sexual desires.
Oh, I know I'm supposed to judge the movie objectively on its own merits, but it is difficult for me to do that and watch scenes with Woody Allen in a school surrounded by small children talking about how he had sexual curiosities at 6 years old in the opening 5 or 10 minutes of the film.
in
It's
a movie
really,
that's
really
more or less a biopic.
It's really rough. Some people will say, well, you have to separate the artist from the art. But when the art is basically objectively
the
about
artist.
the artist,
Well,
how are you going to do that?
There's a
How are you
difference-
going to separate
there's a
Kanye West from his new song where he's basically talking about not liking Jewish people?
There's a difference between. I thought he squashed that beef. There's a difference between watching fucking Harry Potter weekend on ABC. J.K. Rowling's not Harry, and there's a difference between.
character Cho Chang. Sorry.
I know. There's a difference between watching fucking Harry Potter weekend on ABC and not really liking J.K. Rowling anymore because she's kind of a cunt, and then watching I'm going to say basically a Woody Allen biopic in which he talks about being a sexually repressed child and then has his friend bragging about bagging two tweens, two twin teenagers, and then him just going, oh, well, that sucks.
Yep.
They're in their 40s.
Yep. Obviously, the child molestation accusations are half of the big holy shit Woody Allen real life thing. I want to kind of address the other one. When it comes to people dating with large age differences, if everyone is a consenting adult, I support freedom to date who you want to date the same way that we have the freedom to criticize it. But let's open the subject. Woody Allen did not break the law by marrying his 20-year-old adoptive daughter. But that is one of the most disgusting things I can imagine someone doing. He was cheating on his current wife with their adoptive daughter. to then wait until she found out to prompt the divorce so that he could then marry her.
Legally, it's fine. Morally, it's fucked.
So fucked up.
One of the other things too is you can argue, especially with the abuse case opening up after that that child was groomed.
Yeah,
for
there's
their
a
entire-
grooming, there's a grooming level to it. You
That
are
is also
her
highly illegal.
father.
Yes,
You
that is
are
bad.
her father. You
Yes.
can't deny there's a level of grooming to that. It's the same way where, let's say, a high school student starts dating her teacher after she gets out of high school. There's still that layer of like there used to be a dynamic there.
Right. There's a layer of immorality to it.
There's a layer of power dynamic there. And that is what gets under a lot of people's skin. And I understand it because there is like, you have a level of power over this person. This person was a minor in your care. You controlled them financially. You controlled them like you controlled them, just period. Like you were their lifeline for money, for food, for housing, for shelter, like. And then 3 years after their majority, you're marrying them,
and you're also cheating in between that period.
and that doesn't just start at 18. Like, like you can't just pretend that like you're an adult now. The dynamic has completely changed.
Exactly.
You know, my parents still treated me like I was 13 until I was like 22 and moved out for a little bit.
My parents still do.
Yeah, well, that's because you are.
Well,
Mentally, I'm still
I
a
haven't
pup.
stopped being 13 for many years.
Yeah.
But yeah.
like,
Benjamin
yeah,
Button to
it
stop.
literally took like me moving away from for 7 months and basically just not talking to my parents for them to like start treating me more like an adult and like not constantly checking up on me. But you're right. Legally, from just a black and white legal read of the law, it's kosher.
Let's take a
Nothing else about it is kosher.
Let's take a less extreme example, like DiCaprio, where he has a 25-year age limit. Look, if that's what DiCaprio and Brazilian model number 17 want to do with their lives, so be it. Like, as long as no one's getting hurt, as long as no one's getting manipulated in any way.
I'll give it to him that it's a legal age.
The legal age, honestly, I don't morally agree with it. I would not do anything like that.
Your brain is fully developed at 25, so I guess, you know.
But A, it's legally okay, and B, I support freedom. That's my whole thing. I love freedom. Freedom's great.
I think it's like with the DiCaprio thing, it got grosser the older he got.
It is.
Like that was the
Yes.
thing back when he was like 40 and everyone was like, okay, I guess. Like,
Yep.
oh, that's just a rumor. And then it like kept happening
Yeah.
and everyone was like, dude, you're in your 50s. Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with you?
And it all
These could
boils-
be your children.
Yeah,
They
it all
could
boils
be.
down to like, is the 25-year-old or less Brazilian model, is this something that she fully willing wants to do? Okay, fine. You know, I don't think that should.
It's
be
a
like-
reluctant fine.
I don't think it should be illegal. Is what I'm saying. I think that should be allowed because
It's
people should
again,
make
it's
their
the
own choices.
difference between legally and morally.
Right.
Legally,
exactly.
they are two adults. That's fine.
Yes.
Morally, what the fuck,
Morally,
bro?
what the fuck? Seriously,
But
morally,
we
what
can't
the fuck?
we can't fucking send people to jail for morally that's fucked.
Exactly. Otherwise, cheating would be illegal, which is a whole other can of worms. But yeah. All right. Well, in
A
any
lot
case,
more things would be illegal.
A lot more things would be illegal. I just wanted to get that out of the way because Woody Allen has so many things against him.
Yeah.
Some are so much worse than others in terms of law and in terms of morality too. Pedophilia is so much worse. Oh my God.
Jesus.
Holy shit. 7 years old? 7? Sorry, the Wikipedia
I was a
page is
very
crazy.
sexually repressed child.
What the fuck was that?
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
you know what's really funny? I'm going to bring this up.
Please.
10 years before this movie was made, Woody Allen starred in a movie called Casino Royale. And he once said that the production on that movie was so bad that it was the reason he started not just acting in films, but making films.
Sure.
So, Casino Royale, 1967,
Mm-hmm.
with Woody Allen and Orson Welles and David Nivens, is the reason we are sitting here today watching Annie Hall and not Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope.
Yep.
Yeah.
Imagine that one best
We watched
picture.
Star Wars for the third
Or
time.
I will also say alternatively Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Banger.
Sure.
Yeah.
Either way. But that would be a wild
Because we
situation.
sure as shit weren't watching The Turning Point with its fucking 11-0.
What about
Hell no.
Julia?
Or
The film.
0-11. Maybe
Yeah.
Julia. But
Color
No,
purple
it's
coming.
It's
no, it's not.
No, it's not.
You know
But-
what? You know what I will say though. We don't have to watch Midnight in Paris, right?
We do not.
Okay.
No,
it
we
got
do not.
nominated?
Yes.
I hate that film.
I know why you hate that.
I
film.
also know that you don't like it.
I do not like that film.
Yeah.
But
Can I say something?
Please,
No.
please.
It's gonna be my out of 10
Yeah.
for.
Okay.
I think we're here. I think
We're
we have
here.
arrived.
We're here.
We have
It's my-
arrived at the moment of
It's
totality.
my out of 10 for Annie Hall.
I know what I'm gonna say.
5. I think the theming, the jokes, the general overall of the film heavily outweighs some of the negative stuff. But literally half of this film is negative and half of this film is positive. I
Mhm.
think that's a fair assessment.
Mhm.
I really like some of the comedy. I really like when they do interesting things with the scenes where you get your subtitles on screen thinking actual thoughts, where you get bodies detaching, where you
You hear their inner
Ye-
monologues.
yes, some of these things are so interesting. But for every one of those scenes, there's a scene where Woody Allen looks directly in the camera and tells Diane Keaton she's on her period or something. You know,
that was their
he
first
does say
scene.
that. And I feel like this is one of the hardest 50-50s
I think it's just win.
that you can really get, because there's a lot of really genuinely excellent stuff here.
Yes.
But there's also just so much doo-doo that I'm just not having it.
I
I think a 5 is generally what I would have to say here.
I would be inclined to agree, and to get a little more nuanced, I would say it's a 5 out of 10 because all of the conventions of storytelling half the time are used excellently and half the time are not. So you brought up the fourth wall breaks, right? There are some fourth wall breaks like the one you brought up, which is just not funny and you can just cut it out. And
That
it's
scene
better.
with the professor where he's like, "Oh yeah, well here's the guy who fucking you're talking about, and
Right,
he says you're
yeah.
wrong." Isn't that great?
And then there are fourth wall breaks like when they're arguing in the apartment and they're like, "Oh, hey, you just said that." "No, I didn't." "Yes, she did." And then
Oh
he
yeah,
looks
the
at camera.
wife line.
He looks to the camera and he's like, "I swear to God, she just said that, right? Am I crazy?" Like, that's a relatable moment when people are having a debate of some kind and they're like, "This is what you said."
Chat, is this real?
Chat, is this real?
Yeah,
You look to
literally.
a third
He was
party.
literally going, "Chat, is this real?"
Yeah.
Sometimes when couples have a fight, you wish you had a third party objective observer.
I can tell you an exact moment that happened to me like that. I was working with this girl at this restaurant, right? And I was having a rough night, and then she messed something up at the end of the night, and then we went back to her apartment, and she was like kind of mad at me, and I'm like, "What's up?" And she was like, "You looked so happy when they said I messed something up," and I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And according to her, my face like lit up. Like I was happy that she had screwed up because I was having a rough day and it made her like down on my level. Like that was how she described it to me. And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like I was sitting there, I'm like, "What the hell?" I'm like, "Did
Chat,
I?"
is this real?
No,
Yeah.
legit. And it got to the point where I was sitting there, I was like, "Did I?"
Yeah.
You
Like,
know,
you
like,
look
uh,
to the camera, the third party,
You
and
know,
go
I was
like, "Did that
did-
happen?"
Yeah, like
I do
I wish one of our coworkers was there and I could be
Right.
like, "Hey, did I like
Exactly.
make a face?"
You
Like,
hit him
so-
with the Steve Urkel. Did I do that?
Yeah,
That's my
legit.
favorite, and it's such a quick moment. But that's my favorite fourth wall break in the movie because it's so relatable.
It's good.
It's one
and
of
it
the-
doesn't get
Relatable.
resolved.
Yes. Yes.
It
It doesn't get resolved.
Just like real life. I don't
Yeah.
know if that happens.
Yeah,
That's great.
I still don't know about the face thing. I'm like, did I
Exactly.
make a face?
I like the fact that they don't answer that because real life doesn't have that answer. That's cool.
I will. You
I was
good?
just about wrapping up. Like, yeah, this is a 5 out of 10. Fourth wall breaks, 50-50 are great. The jokes are 50-50 hitters and 50-50 shitters. The same thing with the cinematography. Sometimes it's really clever in how they use it. Sometimes it's the car Tokyo drifting down the road. Doesn't make any fucking
Sometimes
sense.
it's that one scene when they're a mile down the road and talking perfectly clear.
That makes no sense. So I think the conventions of filmmaking and the way the movie is done, half the time is used great, half the time is used terrible, including the writing, which is a big part of it. So
Yep.
5 out of 10.
I concur, fellas. This is a textbook 5 out of 10, right down the middle. I have nothing else to add on why it's a 5 out of 10. Both of you have explained it flawlessly.
Thank you.
But this is literally like, if this was a coin flip of a film, is it going to be good or bad? It's the statistical anomaly. It landed on its side.
Can I also say, this is better than I thought Annie Hall was going to be. I thought it was going to
I don't know
stink.
what I will say. I genuinely had no expectations going into this.
I didn't think it was going to be good. I have not heard overly positive things. I'm not a huge Woody Allen guy. I really actually just don't like him.
I wonder why.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, like, even the filmography of his that I've seen, which granted is very little, I'm not huge on. So I wasn't going into this film. It's not like going into a film where you're like, oh, well, I've liked some of this director's work. You know, I know a lot about these actors. Like, Genuinely, Diane Keaton, I've seen her in very few things.
Seen her in The Godfather.
Yep, I liked her in those, but like, I don't know, I didn't have any outward attachment, and I haven't been super positive reception-wise from like outside people telling me, nor with my experience with this stuff. So I thought it was gonna be like a 2 or a 3. I'm pleasantly surprised it's a 5.
I don't think I've ever really heard a review for Annie Hall. I think Molding talked about it once, but I can't remember what he said.
Yep.
I also might just be making that up.
Wish he had a camera in that moment.
Yeah, exactly. Chat, is this real?
Chat, is this real?
I've never received any detailed review of Annie Hall. I'm not familiar with Woody Allen's filmography. Outside of this and Casino Royale, I genuinely can't name another movie that I have seen that he has made or been in. So, and when I was researching this film, I don't think I need to say it, but there was kind of a thing that was kind of like looming in the background, like the fucking sword of Damocles.
Yeah.
That was distracting me from like sussing out whether or not the film was good. You know, because like sometimes when I do the background research, I can there are a couple tells
Yep.
on whether or not a movie is going to be good.
Yeah.
Like if the production notes are a little light, probably not going to be one of the better best pictures. If the award show's a little light, probably not going to be one of the better best pictures. But again, there was kind of a page on a certain site that I just kept thinking about.
Yeah.
That I spent a good hour and a half reading. That just kind of distracted me.
It is its own book, like a little novella.
It was.
Read that
It really
page.
was. I read that whole thing. I took notes. I looked at my notes. It was half a page, and then I just decided I'm not gonna fucking do this for the whole. Like the original fun fact was like I'm gonna fucking talk about it.
Yep.
And then I looked at it and I was like, I can't. That's way too much, and it's gonna distract from the movie. Granted, the movie ended up being, you know, a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
But like in the moment, not knowing that there were gonna be a couple things that we could address in the film, I made the decision. I was like, I can't do this.
Can't do it. No way.
No. And you know what? I actually applaud you for it.
Yeah.
It was very easy.
It's low-hanging fruit.
It's fruit that fell off the tree and is on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And you
And
wept.
rotting.
You know what? I'm leaving it alone.
Yep.
Yeah. And
I
hey,
wonder.
I think we ended up talking about it in a more better context, I'll say.
Yeah.
I feel like if this movie had nothing to do with any of that, if it was like a different movie entirely,
I just wouldn't have brought it up.
I mean, I would have brought it up.
We
at
probably
least
would have been
once.
like, there's some weird lines in here about like child stuff.
You would
but,
have mentioned
know.
it in the fun facts as like, hey, Woody Allen did all this crazy shit later in life, but it wouldn't have been relevant to the movie.
No, like I said, like I didn't expect us to actually have it be in the movie.
Right.
When we were talking about like earlier, when we were talking about the death of the author thing with the JK stuff, it's like there's no blatant transphobia in Harry Potter.
Yes.
You know, like
Right.
there's a little racism, the Cho Chang thing, but like there's no like scene where Harry looks into the camera and he's just like, trans women will never be real
yeah,
women.
right.
You know, there's nothing like that. So like, yeah, J.K. Rowling's kind of a bitch now, but like that's not in that. But then in this movie, when within the first 5 minutes you have Woody Allen in a sea of children going, I was a sexually repressed child, you're like, huh?
I was 6. I had sexual urges.
And,
Who the fuck says that?
And like one of the first things that his character does is lean over and non-consensually kiss another girl. They're both children, by the way. You get the feeling, you're like, oh, we have to talk about it.
Yeah, you got to bring it up. You know,
So
there's no
The
way
Godfather 1 and 2 are the best ones.
Godfather.
Best one's One Flew Over, but Godfather is close behind.
And then, you know, obviously Gigi, the story of Woody Allen.
Just the greatest show on earth is the worst show on earth.
Tom Jones is the worst Jones.
All right, what's up next, Jake?
Yeah, what's up next?
Is it
What's
Kramer
up
versus
next?
Kramer?
Let me no. Kramer vs. Kramer is at the
It's
end
end.
of the 70s.
Oh,
we are
then it must-
close. We're one away.
close.
It's the Deer Hunter.
I was gonna say if it's not Kramer versus Kramer,
yeah,
it's
it's the
Deer Hunter.
last Deer Hunter.
Let's go.
Deer Hunter.
I'm
I
so
know.
excited for the Deer Hunter.